Alright, so my Ableton Live system is made up of three different projects. Live Worship Project, Song Projects, which is a project for every individual song, and Song Template Project, which is what I use to build my song projects. So I want to start with a song project. So let's go to Living Hope. I'm going to open it up. And essentially what it is I have a project for every single song, and they all come in the exact same format like you see here. This format is copied for every single song in my library. And because of that, I can take these songs and drag and drop them into my live worship project, because the live worship project also follows this layout. And so that allows me to easily arrange things from week to week in arrangement view. And essentially they're all speaking the same language. So while I'm here in the song project for Living Hope, I want to run through what all these different tracks are for. So first is for the markers track. The locator flags here that mark the different areas of the song, they don't transfer to the live worship project. So when I drag and drop a song, the locators don't come with it. So I have this track here to mark the different sections of the song, so that during rehearsal, if we need to start at a specific place in a song, we can do that. Now this is just a MIDI track, so if I were to remake this from scratch, I would just go to Insert MIDI Track, and then literally all you do is just double click and add a MIDI clip, drag it to the length, turn loop off, drag it out for the length of that time period, Command R and rename it. It's literally, that's all it is. It's an empty text box. Next is the tempo track. This one is a little more complex, so pretty much how it works is this. In session view, your column, your master column here, you would type in the name of the song and the tempo of the song and the time signature. And anytime you triggered a song from the master column, it would immediately automate to that tempo and that time signature. In arrangement view, it doesn't do that. Arrangement view thinks that the whole length of this project, from measure 1 to measure 10,000, is one song and should have a default tempo unless you specifically tell it to have a different tempo. And that's what this track does. It specifically tells Ableton that you want to change the tempo for the length of this track. So the way that I have it set up is it is a blank audio recording with no sound, and it is the length of one measure. So let me turn this off really quick. So this is how I recorded it, as one measure, well, kind of one measure of sound recording with no sound whatsoever. And then when you open up this track, if you turn on warp, and then you make it the tempo leader, that will override the standard tempo for the project up here. So Living Hope 72 beats per minute, and have tempo leader on, and then I'll loop it for one measure. There we go, that's better. And then I will drag this through the whole song, and that effectively just changes the tempo throughout the entire song for as long as this track is looped. Now it has to be looped. I've found that if you do it as one long block of recording, it won't work. The tempo will slowly change back to the default tempo. But if you have it looped over and over again with a one measure, maybe two measure loop, then it'll work, and it'll keep the tempo consistent. Next is playback. I've found that people use a lot of different words for playback. But this is just the original MP3 of the recorded song. This is Phil Wickham's recording of Living Hope right here. And I have this here for a couple of reasons. One is so that I can build all the rest of this stuff around the recording. Instead of looking at the lead sheet or anything like that, I'll listen to the song and add in the locators and then add in the commands and the click and all that stuff. But I'll mute it during rehearsal and during worship. This track will be muted. Then there's the click. This is just your standardized metronome. I have it as a MIDI clip instead of an audio recording. cue. This is Brenda's voice, the commands that move from section to section of the song. Again, it's just MIDI, and I found that it's better to keep it as individual clips instead of like highlighting, like what some people do is highlight Command J to join them all together. I found that keeping them separated like this works best in case I accidentally put one in the wrong spot. Like this is a measure early, I can just drag it over and it's good to go. And you can do that in arrangement view. In session view, unless they're all joined together, then they will all just clump together, I think, last I checked. And then stems. These are all of my stems, my backing tracks. I put them in a group so that you can fold them up really nicely because whoever is clicking the buttons during worship doesn't need to worry about the stems. That's outside of their pay grade. So I'll take care of that beforehand and let them press the buttons and not worry about having all that. So that is an individual song project. Now, the place where I put them all together for worship is the live worship project. I'll show you that right now. Yeah, so this is my live worship project, and as you see, it's got several different songs. Lion and the Lamb, Great Are You Lord, All I Have Is Christ, Your Love Never Fails, Only King Forever. This was our set from last Saturday at Red Hill. And I want to just kind of go through this. Again, you can see that it's the exact same layout as the song project, and so I can add a song by just going into song projects. Let's say that I wanted to do Jesus is Better. I'll take the ALS file, drag it in, drop it. Now, this is annoying because it won't drop into the already existing tracks. It'll copy the tracks and make new ones. And so I just highlight everything and then I'll move it up here. And that's literally how I build my set, is I just drag and drop and then I delete these tracks. Now I'm not going to actually use this, so I'm going to delete this really quick. There we go. And I'm going to walk through what I have here. So like I said, the locators for the individual song sections don't transfer. And so where the song project for Lion and the Lamb had a locator here, a locator here, a locator here, it doesn't have that. And so I can use the locators for something else. This locator triggers the start of the Lion and the Lamb. This one moves into our spoken call to worship after the first song. And the same thing, Great Are You Lord, all throughout the set. And I found that super helpful because, let's say, well, actually, let me say this first. The letter or the number in parentheses is what will trigger it. I use the key function to map a key on the keyboard to trigger that locator. So if I press 1, it's going to go there, and then W, and so forth. Now, it has to be caps locked. If you put your key command as a capital W, you have to type capital W to trigger it. If you did lowercase w, you'd have to do lowercase w to trigger it. And so I usually just have caps lock on. So let's say like we finished playing Lion and the Lamb. I'm going to turn my volume down really quick. Finish playing Lion and the Lamb. It's all routed for our setup at church. Let me change that real quick. So we finished playing Lion and the Lamb. And then we get to the end of the song.
3, 4.
And at the end of the song, I'm going to do a spoken call to worship. So I'm just going to jump ahead to that.
End 2.
Yeah, so at the end of the song here,
End
I'm going to do a spoken
3,
call to worship.
4.
And I already have a pad here in this section under my stems group. Right, so if you listen, you can hear the pad modulate. And it shifted from one pad to the other because I used the built-in crossfade function in Ableton. And so I moved into this pad that moves between the 1 and the 4 or the 5 maybe, I don't remember. And I can do my spoken call to worship here and say something between the first and the second song. In this pad, is automatically going to play itself at the end of the song. You don't have to use your phone or an app on your iPad or anything like that. You don't have to have your keyboard player play it. He could play some piano parts over this. The pad is there, and it's going to be there throughout the entire set. Now about the locators, let's say that we get to this point here, and like time's almost up, but I want to keep talking. All I have to do is press the 1, and we're back into it. And this should actually be here after the modulation's already done, so what it would sound like is, I want to keep talking, so I press 1. And it's not a perfect transition. You could probably find a spot where the waveform matches the ending waveform, right? So down here you see that the waveform isn't at a peak, it's more at a crest, and so try to find a similar spot here, like right around here probably. Would be nice. And we get to this end point. I want to keep talking. Yeah, so you could work on that a little bit longer, but the idea is that this space is flexible, because that's the number one complaint I hear about people using a setup like this, is that it's not flexible. And within the songs, yeah, there's a little more rigidness to it. But for this, you can have all the time you need, or if you're talking, like I start off this call to worship, and now it was like literally a 2-second call to worship, I'm done. All you have to do is press W, and we're into song 2.
Intro 3, 4, 5, 6.
And that's what all these locators are for. We have the same thing here at the end of the third song. I'm going to pray, and we're going to end the set here. And then I have this note that the sermon's happening, and you need to hit the master stop up here. And that's what the locators do. They just help. They help me, and they help my team move from place to place really easily with a lot of flexibility. And it is super helpful. We have never really had any times where the person running Ableton has gone off the charts and we've lost ourselves and just had to jump ship entirely. That happened like the first or second week we did it. It's really is a good system that has worked really well for us. Now, as I was explaining this to Higgs, he had a question about time signature changes, and this is good to talk about because the Lion and the Lamb is in 4/4, but Greater You Lord is in 6/8. And his question was, do you need to add a time signature change here, right? Like this insert time signature change function. And you don't. What you would need to do is if you have a song that's in a time signature that's not 4/4, you would just need to build the setting in the song project. So let's open up Greater You Lord and open up its song project. So for Greater You Lord, all I had to do was I had to distinguish the tempo as 6/8 here when I was building the project for Greater You Lord, right? So if we turn on the standard metronome for Greater You Lord, whoops, that's not right.
Intro 3, 4, 5.
The tempo is in 6/8 here, but if we go back into the live worship set, the tempo's in 4/4. But because my click track and my cues were built in 6/8 in the song project for Greater You Lord, they're going to stay that way when you drag and drop them. And so, yeah, they won't line up perfectly with the bars here for this project. Like you can see, there's the one there, and then it doesn't exactly match up throughout the project, but it'll sound just fine. Like it'll go from 4/4 to 6/8 as long as you build the song in 6/8 in its song project. So that's kind of my Ableton setup, and I think that it is super helpful. It's a little more time consuming to make. I timed myself this Saturday, and it took me about 20 minutes to put all this together. But that's 20 minutes, which is like nothing, if it means that you can like just kind of take your hand off of a couple things during worship. Like, I don't know, maybe you have someone who specified to trigger pads and to trigger the trigger the start of the click for each song, but this eliminates the need for that altogether. Like, your musicians can just play music, and all the other stuff you can just let it happen. Like, once you start the playback here, you have your pad up. Hey, Red Hill, let's stand and worship together. We're going to sing to the risen Jesus because he has overcome the grave, whatever you want to say. It's literally not going to stop through the entire song. You're going to have this playback all the way to the end of your set, and the only time you have to press a button again, if you get good at planning out your sets and putting this together, the only time you have to press a button again is when you get here to the end of your set and you're done praying and the pad fades out. At this point, you just have to press the stop button. And then you come back on stage for your response and you start your second set. Literally, if you get good at this and it works out so that you don't have to, go back and repeat anything again, the only time your Ableton person has to press any buttons is at the beginning and the end of every set. And it took me a couple weeks to figure this stuff out, but I've timed out how long I like to talk. Like, we live stream our services, and I'll go back and watch. This is the spot where I usually do a call to worship, is after the first song. And I'll time out how long I usually talk for, and I have a pretty good read that if I want to read scripture, I'll make this longer, but I usually say some stuff from myself for about 2 or 3 minutes at the longest. And so because of that, this is the most amount of space that I'll need. And I've gotten really good at knowing myself and knowing what I want to talk about or read or anything like that beforehand. And because of that, this system works so well. Our drummer is the one who runs Ableton, and he has he's taken to this system and loves it because it requires minimum effort from him, and because all the songs are already pieced together. Like, dragging and dropping takes 5 minutes, and the rest of it is just figuring out when you need these spaces and how long you need them to be. It works really well for us, and I think it'll work great for you. And if you have any other questions about it, you're always welcome to reach out to me, and I'd be happy also to send you copies of these projects. Again, the live worship project, the song projects for every song, and then the song template project. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you the song template project just so you can see. I'm going to open actually a new set in Ableton. I'll show you how I build a song. Alright, so I've got a new set in Ableton, so I'm going to hit Tab and go into Arrangement View. I'm going to delete 3 of these 4 tracks. You can't delete all of your tracks, so I'm just going to delete 3 of the 4. I'm going to hit Reverb and get rid of those return tracks. Now, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to open the song template project, or go into that folder. And if you don't know how to add to your library, you just add folder here at the bottom. You find the file that you want. So I'm going to go to Ableton and go into projects and then song template project. And you would just click open. You click open, and then that folder is going to appear in your Ableton library under places. So I'm going to go to song template project. Songtemplate.als. I'm going to drag and drop this in here. I'm going to delete this MIDI clip that's left over, and now I'm going to go to my MP3s that I have downloaded, and let's say that I want to make a project for, Glorious Day. So I'm going to take Glorious Day, the recording, I'm going to drop it into the playback section, close this up. And then all I would do is I would take the tempo track, and then I would type in Glorious Day's tempo, which is 110 beats per minute, loop it through the length of this song, Command R, change it to 110 BPM 4/4. And then I'd just go through and I'd listen to the song, I'd play back the song, I'd add in my locators and put the song sections in under the locators. Then I'd go in and add my click and my cue, and I'd make the markers, which again, to make the markers, all you have to do is double click in the spot you want, drag it for turn loop off, drag it for the amount of time that you want it, and then Command R, verse 1. So that's how I do all of that. Once you have this done, and you've built all your stuff and filled in all these spaces, I just File, Save As, and then I go to my song project folder and save it with all my other projects for my other songs. And then you can just drag and drop into your live worship set whenever you want to play this song. It is super easy. Once you get the hang of it, it is super easy. It takes a little while to get it all figured out. And again, it just works super effectively, and I think that it would be great for you.